Are you guys ready for some piping hot fucking takes? Preemptively, if you'd like to give me a thumbs up for the amount I'm about to overshare, that would be much appreciated. Ordinarily, in my almost 10 years of doing YouTube, when I do any sort of Q&A, those of you following me on Instagram will submit the questions. I will scroll through, I will audit for the ones that seem the most relevant or topical, timely, da-da-da-da-da. There's a lot of bias going on in here. There's a lot of custom selection, but today we're going to wipe that all away and answer the questions that I have strategically avoided over many years. I haven't even read through any of these yet, so you're gonna get the raw and real reactions. I wanted no premeditation on any of these so that you guys get the genuine shit only, and we're gonna start with the one that I was expecting. It's top of the pile. Why did you and Austin break up? So it's been 2 years. I will say I definitely snuck the announcement about the breakup into a video that didn't really have it in the title, mainly because breakup videos were very popular in that season of YouTube, and I felt really icky about exploiting my breakup for views. But right now I am circling the question, so let's just go right in and just say that, listen, we were together for 4 years. I completely lived that relationship online with all of you, so I totally understand the curiosity. It wasn't an amicable breakup, so I didn't feel super comfortable talking about it online, but he was my first serious relationship. We were together for almost 4 years, and I think it was a really happy, lovely, healthy relationship for most of it. Just to clear up, there was no toxic, horrible, huge blow up moment where it ended. There was none of that. It was more so just that towards the end, I just kind of realized that I convinced myself that I was happy in the relationship and that I was fulfilled and I felt good about it, but in reality, I wasn't. And the way I would kind of put it and explain it to people, because it was really shocking when we broke up, is that our relationship, A through O, was incredible and we were super compatible and there was so much good, but there was P through Z where I was I don't know if this is just what you sign up for when you're in a relationship. I don't know if these more negative things I need to just settle for, or if there's somebody out there that potentially could fulfill me and compliment me more. Which I never expect anybody to be your everything and be your A to Z. That's totally unrealistic, but I think it was a situation where I didn't know what I didn't know, and I clearly just wasn't happy for a number of different reasons. I'm not gonna say those reasons. I know that everybody would want me to, but it's there's still another person in this situation that doesn't get to share his piece, so I think it would just be super immoral and evil to spill dirt on somebody else. And honestly, I harbor no resentment. We've both moved on. I wouldn't say we're friends, but I can certainly text him if there's something pressing, and maybe we'll be friends in the future. So that's that on that. He was my first love. He'll always be my first love. I do not regret it. I learned so much from the relationship. I look back on a lot of fond memories, but I am really happy. I'm not really happy overall because we're in a pandemic, but I'm happy to be single. Were you wilder than you let on in your college vlogs and just chose to maintain a cleaner image, or is what we saw pretty much what there was to see? Honestly, I wasn't that wild in college. I definitely drank, but there wasn't any wild, I never had a fake ID. I was just this normie kid pretty much. Definitely in band there was some raunchy kind of stuff going on and some not so PG stuff, but I vlogged at band parties and stuff, so it's not I was just, hey, I'm always in the library. I think my college vlogs genuinely were pretty much an accurate representation of what was going on, which is probably not the answer that you guys want to hear, but that's my take. Would you ever have a public / semi-public relationship again? I think maybe I would let you guys know that I'm in a relationship, or maybe I would post bits and pieces, but I don't think I would ever want to advertise my relationship online again, just because, and I've had a lot of reckoning with this. I choose to share a lot of my life online, and I would never want to feel like I was subtly encouraging or influencing my partner, my friends, my loved ones to need to be a part of my YouTube videos, because it's hard to live your life publicly online. You get a lot of criticism, you get a lot of eyes watching you, and while I make that choice for myself, I would never want to make that choice for someone else. So I think that's kind of why I wouldn't want to live my life publicly, but then again, like, this is single me talking, so who knows what will happen in the future. How's your grieving journey going since the loss of your best friend? I don't talk about this in most of my videos just because it is so personal, and I just feel like there's not a lot of avenues to open up about it online. I have done so very thoroughly in a couple of videos because I know how important it was for me to see others grieving when I was grieving and understand like what that looked like for people to make me feel less alone and more in community. And my grief looks very different now. It's more in sort of the restoration phase where there are like really random moments. I remember I was interviewing for my job for a promotion and I was prepping the night before and I had all this work to do and this presentation to make, and for some reason out of nowhere just like a pang of grief hit me over her, and I spent that night like really intensely in my feelings and crying and just sort of mourning that loss because it's never gone. I think about her literally every single day and I can feel myself already getting emotional about it. It's never too deep below the surface, but it's not at the surface anymore, if that makes any sense. What's up with your dating life? I have dated around and dated a few people. Nothing serious, nothing like I would ever title a relationship. I'm not dating anymore because my mom is immunocompromised, and so that would be horribly recklessly irresponsible and I could never do that to her. So while I'm super open to it and I would love to meet some people and just like explore that part of my life, I am not currently. Do you regret posting your relationship on the internet? Yeah, like I actually want to answer yes to this. I don't regret the relationship very distinctly at all. What I do regret was like blasting it online, but to give past Kath some grace, there was literally no way my little brain would have been able to comprehend like that a relationship can end. Nobody ever expects their relationship to end, so when I see people posting their relationships online in a very confident way, I totally understand. I don't think I'm alone in feeling this way. I think a lot of YouTubers share these feelings, and I think a lot of YouTubers on their second time around with a relationship just get a lot more conscious with what they share. Some of them still choose to share their relationships, but they become a lot more conscious with what to share. I've like unlisted a few of the videos just that I felt uncomfortable having still up, but like a number of them still are, just because I'm like, that's a part of my life that happened. I would never try to erase that or pretend it never happened. I'm proud of that relationship, and like it's definitely cringe to look back on yourself and all of the puppy love and all of that, but it's something I've like reckoned with and gotten to a place where I'm good. What are your thoughts on the recent trend of people leaving California and relocating to a different state/country, something you've recently considered? Oh my god, guys. Maybe I do have a hot take about this one, in that I feel like a lot of the people leaving California, the Graham Steffans, the Joe Rogans, the Tim Ferrisses of the world, it comes from a place of wealth and not so much a quality of life thing. It comes from a place, I think chiefly what they really like, or predominantly what they mention in those videos and what I hear from them is like, the taxes are too high, or like it's too hard to maintain my business here. Like sort of coming from like I know that my money is more valuable elsewhere, versus for me, I don't live in California to like optimize my wealth. My goal in life is not to accumulate wealth. That's not what I associate success with. It's obviously necessary to pay your bills and receive healthcare in this country. Like you need to like have a job to just, literally exist. But I am not in the business of like climbing to billionaire status. So I think the reason I have trouble is because like a lot of the things they mention are like the unhoused folks that really troubled them. And I'm like, I personally don't view folks that are unhoused as a facet of the city, as like a quality of the city, like the traffic would be, or like the restaurants would be. I'm like, they're people. They're not like something you can just mention as a characteristic of the city. Like we literally have more empty houses in this country than unhoused people, I think by a magnitude of like 1.5x. Like if we wanted to, and it's nuanced and it's complicated, and I know it's not as easy as this, but if we wanted to, we could house so many of these folks. We just choose not to because there's no profit in it and there's no financial incentive to do that. And there's so many other countries where we don't see a homelessness crisis because they just choose to support their people differently. So that's the tea, that's the shade. That being said, I'm like a California loyalist. I love this place. I've always evangelized it. That doesn't mean I won't criticize it and criticize like policy choices made in California. That doesn't mean that I'm just like blasting sunshine on it and saying it's the best place ever, for sure not. But, you know, I am looking to move to Washington and move to Seattle and experience something outside of California. Would love to move abroad. I would love to live in Shanghai again. I have a lot of reoccurring nostalgia for that time in my life and living there, and I also can really see myself in like Zurich in Switzerland. I think would be a really amazing experience. So yeah, it's not to say that you won't see a leaving California video from me, but it's gonna be a very different outlook. It's not because I'm like trying to buy a massive house, you know? It's like not from that angle that I would ever leave. It's just because I myself, for my personal growth, would depart. But like, I really probably maybe will boomerang back here at some point, especially because my family's here. Have you ever questioned your sexuality? Not sure if it's just the crunchy vibes, but I feel like you might listen to Sweater Weather, LOL. So I think I actually have been seeing more comments about this since I've like moved more in the granola direction, and like many of my best friends are sapphic and I just get along really well with my WLW women. If you had asked me this question like 6 months ago, I'd be like, no, I know for sure that I'm like only attracted to men. This is in no way coming out video, guys, and I don't want to be like, yeah, I'm like playing with my sexuality. It's more so just like, I feel like the time alone has given a lot of people in my life time to like rethink their gender and the way they perform their gender and like their sexuality and a lot of that, because you just have time to spend with yourself. So I'm not trying to like queer bait or anything. I'm just being open with the fact that I never thought I would question my sexuality, and I'm in this moment. That's not to say that like I'm gonna arrive at any sort of conclusion that's different than the one I have today. Given that you're so anti-capitalist and anti-hustle culture, why do you continue to work in sales at a major tech company? Why don't you instead work in government or at a nonprofit? Given that you're back living with your family, it seems like the perfect time to work in a less high-paying field. Though speaking from experience, you can definitely earn a high wage in public service. Love this question. Am I a big-ass hypocrite lady for saying, oh my god, I hate capitalism and I hate this economic system that has really like hurt so many working-class Americans, and globally hurt so many working-class folks. Done a ton of reckoning, and I think a lot of my thoughts on this topic are sort of circular, where I think about it and I'm like, my job is definitely propping up capitalism. But when I look at a job, and a lot of my friends in nonprofits talk about the nonprofit industrial complex, where when you work in a nonprofit, it actually is also propping up capitalism. And not to get too much into like economic theory or like political theory, because I know that's not really why people come to my channel, but it's a huge passion of mine, and I felt like I've learned so much about my political identity and gotten a real political education in a way I never did growing up. So that's why I want to talk about it. But nonprofits also do prop up capitalism, because when you have a government that chooses to privatize a lot of social services like healthcare, like housing, nonprofits oftentimes exist to try to band-aid those problems. And where the pipes are sort of leaking and busting open, a nonprofit says, hey, let's use like, you know, money from Bill and Melinda Gates to help fix this issue. But it's not actually addressing the root cause of the incentives of capitalism and the reason we don't have those problems addressed at the root. I don't know if I explained that whatsoever, but I just know, and I've heard from friends that like want to do more public service work, that a lot of jobs you still feel like you're just a cog in the machine and that you're just propping up this system. So it's not, we all have to participate in capitalism. I'll never have a job that's outside of capitalism, because that's like saying you can be a fish living on land. It's like, we currently live in water. Until we all, as fish, get together and decide we want to become amphibians and move on to land, like, the water's what we got, and you have to live in this world. And maybe some of us can try to swim closer to the top of the water and try to see the other options that are out there. I don't know if this analogy is making any sense, but I would never criticize somebody for participating in capitalism because that's the situation we have. Like, we all do that. We are not bad capitalists because we're not the people that are creating the problems. Does that make sense? Like, we're just working class people helping the rich get richer. Not to get too charged here, but it's a topic I literally could talk about forever. I love thinking about these sorts of things. So, okay, TLDR, am I going to stay in sales forever? No. I am interested in working in different areas that more closely align with my values, but will I ever get to a place where I'm gonna tell you guys, yeah, I'm just doing like the best work ever? No, I've tried to remove any sort of superiority complex that like anybody's job is better than someone else's job. Like, we are just selling our labor, getting our bags so that we can pay our bills and support our families. Like, I would never criticize somebody for not doing like ethical work because there is no ethical consumption under capitalism. How much do you earn? I feel like I always have to explain myself and give you guys the context because I am trying to be as class conscious as possible, and I know that my life is so different from the majority of lives of Americans, in large part because of my intergenerational wealth, my white privilege. I do not earn what I earn today based on meritocracy and because I worked harder for it than somebody else. It is literally so fueled by the community I was raised, the school I was able to go to. That's just my little 2 cents. My salary for my tech job is not fixed because it's sales, so I have a base salary that I'm guaranteed every month. Then that's 50% of my salary, and then 50%, so half of my salary, is commission. So if I close no deals this year, which, like, who knows, I will earn $0 of the expected commission. And if any of my customers cancel their contracts, I actually owe the company money. So this is literally so subject to change, but as long as I don't go into the negatives, my base salary is $92,000, which is so much more than I ever thought I'd be making out of college. That's like astronomical. And then, like I said, it's 50%. So if you do the math, my target earnings would be $185,000. That's super recent. I wasn't targeted to make that much until this new role I took. So it's not like I've been making that amount for the past 5 years. Like, it very much was incrementally stepped up. When I first came out of college, I was not making 6 figures. I think I was making like $60K. So, which is still a ton of money. Like, that's an insane amount of money. And then YouTube, it's really not as much as you would think, guys. Like, I don't have a manager. I'm just this like indie YouTuber. Like, I don't have people that are like sending me PR packages and like reaching out to brands to partner with me. So I would say YouTube, I earn like around $9,000 or $10,000 a year. Like I said, I'm trying to be class conscious. It's one thing to say I earn this much money and it's so much money and that's crazy, and it's another thing to say, what can I do? If you all have folks in your life that are seeking any sort of like mutual aid type situation, especially Black trans folks, if you have any GoFundMes or Venmos or Twitter threads of folks that need help, like, please put those in the comments. That's my MOs to make sure that I am redistributing my wealth the way that I can without you guys even suggesting anything. I'm already doing that. I just want to say I'm not asking you guys to provide that labor for me. I'm just saying if there's folks that I don't know about through my own research into mutual aid, let me know. I would love to support any of your causes, your local causes, and individual folks rather than maybe huge nonprofits that a lot of their overhead goes to administration fees rather than the individual people. That's that on that. Do you ever have a tough time feeling like you might have already peaked? I'm about to graduate college and I'm definitely starting to feel this. I have already just claimed for myself that I know I peaked in high school. I have never been as confident, had as high of self-esteem, felt as bright and as just on top of my shit as I was in high school. But I would say there's no negative, like, I don't have a tough time now feeling like I am no longer that like incredible, and maybe it's achievement oriented that I feel like I peaked in high school. Like, I'm trying less and less to orient my success and my worth and my value over what I achieve and what I accomplish, and more just about my fulfillment. I was very fulfilled in high school, so even if I look at that through that angle, like, I was still very fulfilled then. But that's not to say that I still can't be fulfilled today. So I love that I'm constantly growing and evolving and changing, and I'm not the same person I came onto YouTube and recorded my first video as, you know, almost 10 years ago. So I would almost rather backslide from my peak than peak and stay that exact same person forever. That's the thing about peaking, is it's a point in time. You're never gonna maintain the peak. So I kind of feel good that like maybe my progress hasn't always gone up and up, but progress and like growth isn't always linear. We've seen that in the past year. That's the way that goes. So would you want to do YouTube full time if it paid as well as your current job? This is an answer that I was so confident about when I did a Q&A, I think January of last year. I'll link it below if you want to watch that one and see how much my like ideals and how I present myself and all of that has changed. But I was always really fearful of being self-employed. I think because I was so used to having structure put upon me. I'm so used to being a lifelong student where I have classes at these certain times. They tell me these are the classes required for your major. You know, here's what you have to take. You have some freedom, but here's pretty much prescriptively what you gotta do. And then being in a job, it's like, here's the job description, here's your role, here's what we're expecting of you. And then you get to decide, do you wanna try to beat those expectations? Do you wanna just ride through it? That felt comfortable to me. And I think now I'm looking at it and I'm like, I think it was because I was just buying into like the path set up, you know, in front of me. I'm basically recording a fucking podcast right now with these answers, but I've been talking to a few folks because I'm like, if I were to redo my education or pursue education again, I wouldn't really want a degree where they enforce exactly which classes you have to take. I would want to take classes that I just find the most interesting and I'm most curious about, and like build my own degree per se and just take individual classes. So I'm becoming more and more like interested in building my own structure. So that is to say, YouTube wouldn't ever have to pay the same as my tech job for me to want to do it full time. I still struggle with like, it's just so hard to stay relevant on YouTube, and I think I would literally drive myself cuckoo bonkers. Right now when my views dip, I'm like, oh, that doesn't feel great, but it's also like, nobody has to watch my videos. It's just a form of creative expression for me. It's not like I will literally not be able to pay rent if my videos flop, but it would be really scary to be in that position. I thought I was going to answer this question very differently, but now I'm seeing that I still have kind of the same answer as last year, which is that I would have a lot of caution around doing YouTube full time, but I no longer look at people that do it full time and think, oh my god, that's like so crazy and risky, because I've seen so many folks thrive when they do it full time. Did your parents pay for your college and do you feel privileged because of it? Yes and yes. My parents saved, what is it, a 501k? There's a certain fund you can save tax-free from the time your child is like literally conceived, I think, for college. And my parents prioritized that because they had tech jobs where they were able to pay for that. They had enough for 3 years of a private education, and that is why I graduated from USC a year early, came in with AP credits, and said to myself, I would rather have a 3-year experience at USC and not be in like 60 to 70k of debt that I would have to pay because they didn't save for me, than do the 4 years and have the debt or go to a different school. You know, I really wanted the USC experience for myself, and I'm genuinely really happy with the way I went into that experience, but I was only able to make that decision because of the money my parents saved for me, and I don't think I've always been very forthcoming about that, and I'm trying to be more and more forthcoming that I know that my accomplishments are not my own and that I'm standing on the shoulders of my parents, where a lot of people don't have shoulders to stand on. Feels like you've changed a lot in the past year or so. How do your parents feel about that change, and has your relationship with them also changed? I might actually do a video on kind of like, I'm about to turn 25, so maybe like 25 things I've learned before 25. I love those videos. I don't know if any of you would be interested in that, but I might just make it for myself, you know, to kind of have something to look back on. And if you want to watch it, you can. I don't think there's been a year in my life where I've learned, changed, developed in positive and negative ways more than this year. Like, it's not just all positive. Politically, like I grew up pretty damn aligned with my parents, and now I've moved a little, maybe a lot further away from them. And and I'm not the kind of person to like hide who I am and like hide what I believe. I love to have conversations. I love to be challenged about what I think, and so I've had a lot of those conversations with my parents. Doesn't result in a lot of like positive, warm and fuzzy feelings. I'll just be completely honest about that. But it's not like they're disappointed in me or anything. I think they're glad that I can make up my own mind in this world and that I'm not just like literally following exactly what they would have done. Do you ever wish you'd made different decisions in the past and pursued other interests for your education and career? Does anybody ever feel fully confident in their decisions? Because I'm just a lady that's full of self-doubt, and I think it's healthy to doubt and question yourself and try to like grow your self-awareness. If I could imbue 18-year-old Catherine with the knowledge I know today, I would make much different decisions, but that's not how life works. Like the brain I had at 18, what I learned about the world in my very small bubble, I made decisions that I was happy with, and I don't regret those decisions because I know that I did the best with the information I had at the time. That being said, if I were to go back to school now, like redo education, like now I'm a lot more interested in like political science and more like structural work rather than learning about like private companies and that kind of thing. Would you ever, oh my god, this is a wild question, wow. Would you seriously date/marry someone who is lower than you socioeconomically? If yes, would your parents be upset? For sure. I am no longer classist about who I date. I for sure was. Like, I remember thinking like, I need to date someone that earns a certain amount because I know I want to live in the Bay Area, and in order to afford a house in the Bay Area, you have to have X dual income to afford this and afford that. And it was very much like I was planning out my entire life path. But now I'm less like, I need to buy a house. I'm like, it would be okay if I had to rent forever. I'm not like 100% nailed down to living in the Bay Area, so it's not like I need someone that's, working in tech and doing that whole thing. So for sure I would date someone lower than me socioeconomically, like for sure, but I will acknowledge that I didn't always think like that. And would my parents be upset? Hopefully not. We'll cross that bridge if we ever get to it. Is there a video you regret posting, and what's your favorite video that you've made? My favorite video that I've made is actually my transformation into a granola girl video. I think the way I packaged it with the title and the thumbnail, it didn't seem as appealing because I'm just really bad at titles and thumbnails, guys. Like that's the hardest part of YouTube for me. So I think I packaged it in the wrong way, but the actual content of the video I'm so happy with, and I think it's the best work I've ever done. I think I'm like the most me in that video, and I just think I was able to channel a ton of creativity in there, so check it out because I think it is really different than what I've made in the past, and I like it. A video I regret posting is the video I talked about how I saved $50,000 my first year out of college, because I was so like entitled in that video, and I had such a lack of conception of like the economic reality of most Americans, and I think my financial advice in that video was very non-inclusive. I actually haven't watched it in years and years, but I just remember getting a lot of comments about like, hey dude, like the only reason you're able to save is because you didn't have any student loans, and I wasn't upfront about that. So I think I just approached that video the wrong way. I've tried to make my financial videos in the last couple ones I did much more inclusive. Let me know if I've accomplished that or if I still have, work to go on that. On a scale of 1 to gay, where do you think you fall? Is there a scale of 1 to gay? What happened with your college BF? Do we hate him? No, we don't hate him. Okay, I just looked through all of the questions and everything else was either a repeat or something I've already answered in a previous video. Please leave me a comment with what surprised you the most or the biggest hot take of the video in your opinion. You might not agree with everything I said in this video, and I totally get that. I think I gave you guys a much bigger window into my worldview than I usually do. I might have voiced some unpopular opinions. I totally get that. I'm growing and changing and shifting and just trying to figure out who I am in this world, and I hope that you'll give me grace that I'm just trying my best. When I know better, I do better. Sometimes I do not know better. If somehow you're watching this video and you're not subscribed, that red button is so much prettier when it turns gray and you just have to click it. And finally, if a lot of this was surprising to you and you felt like you learned a lot more about me in this video than you usually do, I feel like my Twitter and Instagram fill out a lot more of my life just because YouTube is a very specific medium to package content in. So if you want to explore any more of my radical takes, Twitter's the vehicle for that. Instagram is the vehicle for random thoughts and realizations I have. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all next time, and Katherout.